everybody. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Get Ready. And today I am excited to have with me a relatively new friend, but someone with some really cool information. So let me tell you a little bit about my guest. Laura Heft, PhD, is a behavioral scientist, optimism expert, love that, psychologist, and author dedicated to helping people become more optimistic and successful. Understanding that we are human, understanding that we as humans are surprisingly unaware of why we do what we do and what influences our decisions, she is committed to leveraging the power of behavioral science to improve lives. Laura has been leveraging tapping for years to heal her own emotional pain, rewire her beliefs, and is now an advocate sharing the practices with all who are interested. Laura is the founder and CEO of Grow Optimism LLC. They deliver science-based solutions that drive higher performance through consulting, training, and coaching, including an assessment that not only identifies a person's level of optimism, but also provides feedback on strengths and opportunities. Awesome stuff. Thank you, Laura, for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
So we're talking about relationships and the ending of relationships and what that means. And I think it was Neil Sedaka who said, breaking up is hard to do. Why is that?
Yes, he did. Well, there's a lot of reasons that breaking up is so difficult. And I think I can tell you about my own journey a little bit, Brad. So I recently went through my own breakup and I recognized, why in the heck is this so hard? And I didn't understand why it was so painful and why it was taking so long to get over it. And I decided to try to apply the things that I do with optimism and with behavior science and with tapping and put them to work on myself, because what I learned is that sometimes we can see things in other people, but we can't always see them ourselves. So that's been my journey. And then I decided, heck, I need to help other people with this so that I can help them heal faster, move on, and find the right partner next time.
Yeah, I can't remember. I just heard this quote again recently, and I can't remember who it's from, saying that when we're inside the jar, we can't read the label on the outside.
That's a good one. I'm going to have to use that.
Yeah. So you did some research to find out what's on that label.
That's right. So you were just asking me, why is it so hard? And I think, I can talk about a couple big things that happen for us. If you go back to your psychology, you probably remember Abraham Maslow has the pyramids that talks about our important needs. And the thing that I realized is that when we break up, we're simultaneously hitting a lot of those really important needs. So for example, we just lost our love, which is huge in and of itself. But we also lose our belonging. Where do we fit in the world? I've been a couple, and so now I'm a single person, and how do I fit and make sense out of that? And then we may have our self-esteem attacked, because in some ways there's some rejection that goes on when a relationship ends. I may feel badly about some of the choices I made or the mistakes that I made. Even if I'm not to blame, for heaven's sakes, I'm the one who chose to be in that relationship. And so I have to take some responsibility for that as well. So between all of those things, and then even our safety and security at the bottom of the pyramid could be challenged if we're financially dependent on each other, or if we're cohabitating, which a lot of people are. So everything, it seems like, is challenged all at once, not to mention our lives is kind of turned upside down because there's so much change, and none of us really like change all that much.
So it's a lot more than just, now what am I going to do on Friday nights?
I think you're right. I call it the emotional soup because I didn't even talk about that yet, but my goodness, there's so many feelings involved in this. I could go on forever about that point.
So what would be the key things you think are, or that you found, that push our buttons the most? That obviously those of us who've gone through a breakup, which is quite a few of us, at some point have experienced that pain. And so identifying what in particular is painful so that we know, okay, how do I how do I move through this and get to the other side as fast as possible? So what are
Right.
those key things that really cause that pain?
Yeah, I kind of think of sort of the tagline. My book is survive and then thrive, and that's what we want to do there.
Amen.
Well, I think the biggest thing is to become more aware of that emotional soup that I talk about.
Yeah.
So, what am I feeling? And the challenge with that is, as humans, we we would rather avoid our feelings no matter what. And so, in a breakup, there's so much pain based on all those things I talked about: the loneliness, the fear, the maybe the anger, maybe the sadness. Maybe I'm still in love. Maybe, should I get back together? I'm confused. I'm going through so many changes. And it's easy to try to avoid those feelings. So, the typical movie, right, is we've got a gallon of ice cream that we're eating. So we
Right.
turn to these other behaviors, or we start dating right away because we want to feel better about ourselves, or we throw ourselves into a project. And all of those things can distract us. But I think really the irony is the path forward is to allow ourselves to find out what we are feeling. And that takes a little bit of sorting out because it is maybe a lot of different emotions, and to work through that. And I really do believe that that is the only path forward, because if we don't, those feelings will come back. They're not really gone. They might be stuffed down. And by working through it, it allows us to really get what we want the next time, versus, I believe, if we don't, we would just repeat patterns. So, you're going to end up sort of where you're at again.
Yeah, what you resist persists. There was a book, and I'm forgetting the author, years ago wrote Buried Feelings Never Die. And that's what we're trying to do with so many of those other things, the gallon of ice cream. We're trying to bury those feelings. It was interesting. I was being interviewed yesterday, and the interviewer said, "So in this process you do, you basically touch yourself." I was like, okay, that's an
Never
interesting way
thought
of
about it that
phrasing it.
way.
But it led to that thought of, but it helps us get in touch with ourselves, because so many of us, particularly in Western society, we live from the neck up, and we we feel uncomfortable dealing with the stuff that goes on below the neck.
That is so true. I feel like when I talk to people about their relationships or their breakups, sometimes they say, well, I have processed it. And I think what they've processed is what they think. And we ruminate over what happened and who said what and what one person did to the other person. But really, I don't want to say that's irrelevant, but what's really important in terms of processing is how I feel about those things.
Right. They're sitting there eating the gallon of ice cream. Oh, no, no, I processed all that. I'm good.
Right, right, right.
Got any more ice cream?
Have another drink.
Exactly.
So, Brad, why do you think people avoid these feelings?
Well, again, this idea that we're so out of touch with that, with our feelings, and it's so unfamiliar that we want to avoid what feels uncomfortable and what feels unfamiliar.
Right.
And yeah, and then the thoughts that we then take on about why it happened, and like you were saying, whether you caused it or not, either you're feeling rejected or you're feeling guilty. So any way I look at it, it's going to be painful.
Right. Right. Or I'm afraid to be hurt again. And that
Yep.
influences my behavior a lot.
Right.
You
If I
know,
let go of this pain, then I'll have to be single. I need to hold on to this pain to make sure that I don't put myself out there again and let this whole mess happen all over again.
right. And I think one of the things I loved about writing this book was immersing myself. And this is probably obvious to you, but one of the things that was really helpful for me was to think about, you know, actually experiencing our emotions just takes a matter of minutes. But if we stuff them down, if we don't acknowledge them, if we let them hang around, they can last for years, and they come out in such unwelcome and unexpected ways.
Yes.
So it's almost, but you know what, I find that there are so many people that really don't even have a language around emotions. They don't know how to determine what my feelings are. So I think a really easy starting point is just increase your emotional vocabulary. Learn some more words about how you're feeling and try them out, talk about them.
And then if it's uncomfortable, hey,
We
if
can
only
tap.
there was something we could do to deal with that discomfort.
Absolutely. But isn't that funny how quickly we can deal with them, but we can spend years avoiding them?
Yeah, absolutely. I I don't think I don't know if in the bio if I mentioned the name of your book. So tell folks the name of your book.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. It is actually called Re-Singled. And my ex-boyfriend actually had the idea of the name of that book, so I have to give him credit for that, as well as the pain that made me write it. But while we're giving credit,
Dedicated to the SOB who broke my heart and gave me the name of of this.
yes. So yeah, the book it's in 3 parts, and the first part is around how to survive. And I believe that it was at least helpful for me to understand, why am I feeling this way and what's behind it. So there's a lot of behavior science. I explain things about how the brain works and our biases and what happens with emotions, and how, we're not even really able to make good judgments when we're under such emotional stress and emotional pain. So some
Right.
people can figure out, should I get back together or not? And
No, that emotional stress shuts down the prefrontal cortex, and our rational thinking goes out the window.
right.
So, what would you say to somebody who might be watching this, who's going through a breakup or has recently become single again?
Yeah, I think the first thing is really to tackle those emotional issues. I do think the book can be helpful in helping a person unpack what's happening in their lives, because we're under so much emotional stress. I've been told it's very consumable. So from a psychological point of view, it sort of unfolds what's happening. And I think sometimes that awareness is really helpful for people to understand, look, you're not alone. There's science behind what you're going through and why. And then the second part of the book is about unpacking the emotions. And that's where I go into identifying your emotions, feeling them, tapping, I call it diffusing emotions. There's a whole chapter on that.
Excellent.
Then the last part is around how to thrive and how to find your ideal partner for the next time.
There is hope after breakup.
There is tremendous hope, but I am really surprised and saddened by how many people are suffering around relationships. And I think especially in this COVID year. But I would also say I run into people now who have had relationship, I call it PSD, relationship PSD, for years. And so they've been holding on to this relationship pain for 3, 5, even 10 years. And they're just even sadder because they want another relationship, but they're in their own way and they don't know how to get out of the way and get what they want. I talked to a woman and she read my book over a weekend, and she said she cried the whole weekend after reading it. And I was sad about that. But on the other hand, I said, what happened here is you released a lot of that emotion that was there from 10 years ago.
Right. And it's processing. This happens, with tapping, with the crying. We have, again, it's the societal thing about not feeling our emotions. And so a lot of times we may think of crying as, oh, that's a bad thing. We don't want to, you made the person cry. Oh, that's bad. No, because that stuff is in there, and the crying is a release, and it's a processing of that.
Yeah. It's a signal. I feel like it's a flag. Hey, there's something down here that needs your attention.
That's why I never talk about negative emotions. I don't believe there are any negative emotions. They're all part of the human experience. I call them uncomfortable emotions.
Oh, that's good. I wish I'd have heard that before I wrote the book.
Second edition. But like, sometimes I'll talk about anger as being like a smoke detector. And, it's there to let us know there's something wrong. Either there's fire to put out or the batteries need to be changed. So it may be a misunderstanding or there may be a problem to solve. But when the smoke detector is going off and the alarm is going off, we don't go, oh, that's such a bad thing. I wish I didn't have that. But a lot of people do. They'll then, banging on pots and pans trying to drown out the sound, and I'm going to be louder than the sound. It's like, no, go find the fire extinguisher and put out the problem.
Right, right. So that's what I get excited about too, Brad. What you just talked about is uncovering maybe those uncomfortable or painful emotions. And I just want to share with the world the whole tapping technique and what you taught me and other people, because wow, doesn't everybody need to understand that we don't have to carry that around and start forest fires anymore?
What a
We can burn
concept.
the house down.
Right. Right. But as you said,
It
it's
is
that first step is being able to say, okay, I'll take a look at this, because we're so afraid of I won't be able to handle the fire, or I have no familiarity with those feelings. So I'm suffering right now, but suffering I can do. Analyzing, looking at things, addressing it, acknowledging, yeah, not in my wheelhouse.
right. And it's really unfortunate, but it's also, I don't think many of us were taught how to process our emotions as children or as adults. So I can't blame anyone. All I can do is try to hold a light on it.
Yeah.
Which
No.
is what we do too. So how do we reach more people? And
we
get
are
out of
we are doing it, Laura. We
there
are
we go.
doing it. Yeah, that there's definitely, for many of us with emotions, we were told to just knock it off.
Right.
Don't feel that. Just don't feel that.
Especially for
Oh,
men.
okay.
Yeah, it makes no sense. But even women, we have a tough time with our emotions as well. As long as I've been working on it, I was speaking with someone today, and there's always a new layer of the onion, I think, for me to explore. But today, what I love about it is I can wake up in the morning and say, is anything disturbing me today that I need to deal with? Or if something bothers me, instead of getting angry about it, I say, oh, cool, another opportunity. What am I really feeling? Huh.
In your research around this, and as a as a behaviorist, what do you find around do you find that a lot of folks have this there's a sort of self-righteousness about the suffering, like I deserve to feel what I feel, or a sense of obligation. I should feel what I feel, because if I don't feel this, then I'm sort of dismissing what happened and it was a total waste of time.
Right. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. In the third part of my book, I have a chapter on the importance of happiness. And I believe, so I kind of address that whole idea of suffering and the beliefs that we have in life about whether we should be happy or whether we're supposed to suffer. And sometimes that comes from our experiences, like, okay, well, I've come from the school of hard knocks and it hurts too much to expect something good. So I'm just going to expect the worst. Or, I was raised in a religion where suffering was highly valued, that was something we were supposed to do. That was close to godliness. So we do have all these beliefs, I think, that get in the way of our finding ways to be happier. But I think being happy is the solution. And my goodness, if you think about, let's go to how to find your ideal partner. Aren't you attracted to people who are happy and full of positive energy? And do we want to hang out with people who are negative and suffering and
It
telling you
depends.
about it?
It depends on how healthy our mindset is, because there are some people who go, "Oh, I'm miserable. That person looks miserable. We're a perfect match."
Okay, you have a very good point there. That is
And that's not,
absolutely
and for anyone watching, if you have a pattern of that, please, I'm not trying to mock anybody. It's a matter of shining a light on and recognizing, because we get into these patterns. We are always doing the best we can based on our programming. And if we have a tendency to find people that logically we could look at it and go, oh, this person is no good for me. This person is not going to enhance my happiness. But there's a part of us that says it's familiar. And
Mhm.
so we might go looking for that.
It's
But you
so
deserve
true.
better.
Our brains are, there's something called the confirmation bias and the
Yes.
negativity bias. And so if you have if I have a belief that this is what I deserve and I'm supposed to suffer, even if I don't think about it every day, but it's in there, then I've programmed my brain to look for people like that and actually to filter out people who aren't like that. So it's very interesting. Our brains are wonderful computers, but the funny thing is we program them by what we focus on and think about. And sometimes these subtle negative beliefs sabotage us. So I think tapping can also be a really cool tool to help me think about what subtle beliefs do I have that I'm really not even conscious of every day.
Yeah. And what are those beliefs that are causing me to feel pain right now and block happiness that is possible?
Right. And I'm sure you talk about tapping all the time, but I just have to give this advocacy, which is that because we're in fight flight, when we're upset and we're hurt and we're scared and we're disappointed because we're not meeting our ideal partner, um, we can't think clearly. And so tapping helps me calm that fight flight response, and it allows me to just have these brilliant ideas and see things the way they really are instead of the way um, my uncomfortable, I don't want to call it negative thinking anymore, but my uncomfortable mind keeps bringing to the forefront.
Right. Right. I've been learning more about flow recently. I have been looking into it and studying it off and on for a few years, in like the work of Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Recently, the
Great
work,
job pronouncing that.
pardon me?
Great job pronouncing his name.
Took a long time. Uh, and the work recently, look at the work of Stephen Kotler, who talks about flow, and really looking at how reducing friction so that we have flow, and tapping is a profound tool for reducing that friction. And then in that state of flow, we have much more creativity. From a standpoint of law of attraction, we attract much better things into our lives, and much healthier people, and certainly in terms of relationships, getting into that happy place, it draws people to us that we're going to feel better about. There's I was laughing at the line in Jerry Maguire, the whole "you complete me," as though we're two broken pieces and we're trying to find the broken piece that fits against us. And it's like, no, we're whole and complete, lacking nothing. And then allowing ourselves to know that, so that we can then find someone who then enhances and adds to the awesomeness that we already are.
Gosh, I love that. That is a fabulous insight. I had never thought about flow and tapping and creativity, but I'm gonna think some more about that. I like it. And I like what you were saying about Jerry Maguire and how we complete ourselves. And I like to think that I'm totally 100% responsible for my own happiness. And so the partner that I draw into my life is really just the icing on the cake.
Yes. Yes. That takes away a lot of the friction of the expectations of, oh, you're now the person who can make me happy. Welcome to the job. It's like,
Yeah. That is such a tall order, but I think many of us expect another person to make us happy, and I think we're just bound for disappointment, right?
expectations are premeditated upsets.
Ooh, I like that too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's the thing is, so no, it's great that you have laid out these processes for allowing folks who have become single again to process that, so that the next time it's like, wow, they're in a much healthier place to then build something that is going to be far more fulfilling. And I like to think that with the help of the work that you're doing, they might even feel grateful. It's like, oh, wow, what I can now create is so much better than what I had.
Right.
An opportunity.
I think you're right. There's one more theory. It's called prospect theory. But sometimes we want something that we have right now, even if it's not good, because we don't believe in what we can have in the future. We really have to fight our brain bias about that. But I do believe that through tapping and dealing with our emotions, people can have the most phenomenal relationships, and we don't have to settle, and we don't have to be unhappy.
Yeah. When we talk about lack mentality, we so often think about money, but it's very much the same with people and partners.
It is.
You're lucky to get what you get.
Right. And there's definitely a mentality like that. Or I deserve what I'm getting, or whatever it is.
And we deserve, as I often say in both tapping and guided imageries, you're a magnificent child of the universe, worthy and deserving of the best this world has to offer.
Woo!
Nothing is too good for you.
That's great. I believe it. All of our listeners out there, that's what you can have.
Well, thank you for doing the work that you do to help people process where their pain is, so that they can be much more open to something that's far better, and allowing them to recognize they deserve better, and then bring that into their lives.
Thank you, Brad. And thank you for all you did to help me get where I'm at.
My pleasure.
Really, we can all be very, very, very happy and have extremely fulfilling relationships. It's not that hard. Let's not make it work.
Good plan.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. It was great being here today.